village, it is the season of planting and new life. It is also courtship time. Attraction leads to the ritual of mating.
We'll say more about that piece later on. That was to get your attention. Welcome, everyone. I'm Liesl Olson. I work here at the Newberry Library. I am thrilled to see you all here. This is only our second in-person, inside public program at the Newberry, and we're just so happy to have you. Yes, very glad to be here. I am curator of Chicago Avant-Garde, 5 Women Ahead of Their Time, the exhibition that's currently on view just down the hall. I hope you'll check it out. And I want to give a special thanks to the Paul M. Angel Family Foundation for sponsoring today's program and the other programs related to the exhibition. For those of you joining us here for the first time, or who might be new to the library, the Newberry supports research and inspires teaching, research, and learning in the humanities. We were founded in 1887, and since then, the library has remained dedicated to deepening our collective understanding of ourselves and the world around us. We connect researchers and visitors with the collection in the Newberry's reading rooms, exhibition galleries, program spaces, classrooms, and online digital resources. So we're open now, fully open to readers with no appointment necessary, Tuesday through Saturday. And our bookshop is also open 12 to 4, Wednesday through Saturday. And you can also check out our bookshop online. Visit newberry.org to learn more about our collections and exhibitions, our many digital programs, online classes, and our virtual and in-person public programs. We have another program coming up, which I'll tell you about at the very end, related to the exhibition. So before I introduce today's speakers and performers who are amazing, I just want to give you a brief overview of the exhibition, Chicago Avant-Garde, 5 Women Ahead of Their Time, and then kind of frame Katherine Dunham within this larger context of women artists, writers, and performers. This is an image that we're using for the exhibition. I'm going to move this up a little bit. It is a portrait of Ruth Page done by the Japanese-American sculptor Isamu Noguchi. It's called Miss Expanding Universe, streamlined, futuristic figure radiating outward. It's a kind of symbol of the ideas of the exhibition around freedom and kind of expansion. Ruth Page was a dancer who worked very closely with Katherine Dunham in the 1930s, and their relationship is also explored in the exhibition. So 5 women. This is an image of one of the figures in the exhibition, the surrealist painter Gertrude Abercrombie, who was a longtime South Sider. She's pictured here painting or posing as a painter, because of course that painting is framed. She's dressed very nicely. Very, very funny, subversively funny artist. She's painting or pretending to paint a work called Self-Portrait of My Sister, which is on display in the galleries. She didn't have a sister. And even if she did, it would be very hard to paint a self-portrait of a sister. She knew Katherine Dunham very well. And in fact, Katherine Dunham owned one, if not two works by Gertrude Abercrombie. So they were connected in various ways, especially through John Pratt, who was Katherine Dunham's husband, who was also a visual artist, set designer, did costumes for the Dunham Company for years and years and years, as well as for Ruth Page. Here's the figure who's probably best known, who's featured in the exhibition, the poet Gwendolyn Brooks, who was also a longtime South Sider, lived about a mile away from Gertrude Abercrombie. They shared many friends in common. She's holding her first collection of poems, A Street in Bronzeville from 1945. She would go on a few years later to win the Pulitzer Prize for poetry. She was the first Black poet to win the Pulitzer Prize for poetry. She captured the voices and experiences of her neighborhood, of her city. I think she's probably the most extraordinary poet to come out of this city, a really devoted Chicagoan. This person is probably the least well-known figure in the exhibition. This is Catherine Kuh, K-U-H. She opened the city's first modern art gallery in 1935, and then later became the first curator of modern painting and sculpture at the Art Institute of Chicago. She profoundly shaped the collections at the Art Institute, but really collections across the city. She was very close to Katherine Dunham. In fact, Katherine Dunham and John Pratt came to her gallery numerous times. They actually all three vacationed together in 1941. Catherine Kuh helped kind of navigate a white cultural elite in the city for Dunham. Their friendship is something that was a real revelation, frankly, in doing research for this exhibition. And this is Paige. This is her dancing in the piece that inspired that Noguchi sculpture, Expanding Universe. She's dancing in a stretchy blue wool jersey sack dress that Noguchi designed for her. Replicas of these costumes are also on display in the exhibition. They collaborated, Dunham and Page, together, perhaps most famously in 1933 and 1934 on a ballet called La Diablesse, which means she-devil. And it was through this ballet, first performed for the Century of Progress World's Fair in 1933, in which they essentially desegregated the ballet. 1934, Katherine Dunham danced the lead role in this ballet at the Opera House, and it was the first time an all-Black cast had been performed at the Opera House. This was years and years and years ahead of George Balanchine in New York. It's really kind of phenomenal Chicago history. Here's the figure who we're going to explore more fully today. This is Dunham, yes, looking amazing in her first full-length ballet, Lagya, from 1938. Is that right? 38? Yes. And there's footage. Thank you. I know everybody. There's a lot of people in this room who know so much more than I do about Dunham. There's great footage of Dunham dancing in this piece in the galleries. Just a few more slides. On the left here is a clipping from Dunham dancing in that lead role in La Diablesse, the she-devil, with her cape or wings and her feathered feet. She's throwing the young lover in front of her into this trance. She's about to throw him over a cliff. That's actually her first husband, which is really striking, which is why it's in the exhibition. The middle image is from 33, did we say? 32, yeah, Fantasy-Nec, and that's Dunham right in the middle. So this is before she goes to the Caribbean in 1935. And then this woodcut print, it's very small, is advertising a performance at 5037 Indiana on the south side from 1941. So this is after she comes back from the Caribbean. All of this material is in the exhibition. And finally, I just want to do a shout out to the gorgeous designers who made this catalog. Nadine is here. She helped design the book, Chicago Avant-Garde, 5 Women Ahead of Their Time. We worked with 3 artists who engaged with all of the material from the exhibition and really produced a work of art. The catalog contains new poems by Eve Ewing that are inspired by each of the 5 figures in the exhibition. It's really stunning. So it's down the hall too in the bookstore. So that's enough about the exhibition. Now I want to give space to Joanna and Amansu. There has been much written about Katherine Dunham, but this is really it. I mean, I love this book so much. Katherine Dunham, Dance in the African Diaspora, which Joanna Dee published just a few years ago. And you can tell by all my notes in the side that I really went deep. So amazing, this biography. Joanna is an assistant professor of dance at Washington University in St. Louis. Thanks for coming up to Chicago. She studies dance in the African diaspora, musical theater dance, and the politics of performance in the 20th century. Her book, Katherine Dunham, Dance in the African Diaspora, won the 2018 De La Torre Bueno Best First Book Award from the Dance Studies Association. Awesome. And in addition to her scholarship, she's a dancer. She's trained in the Dunham Technique, so that's really extraordinary. Amansu Eason is a certified instructor of Dunham Technique. Yay. He's an adjunct faculty member at Columbia College Chicago, so he's here in the city. He was introduced to the Katherine Dunham Technique as a student at Bowling Green State University in 2003. So we are so lucky to have the 2 of them collaborating together on this lecture demonstration. Without further ado, I will hand it over to you all. Thank you.
It's a new thing now when you give a talk. You have to choreograph the taking off of the mask. Hi, everybody. I'm Joanna Dee. I'd love to thank Lisa Olson, Elizabeth Cummings, and Catherine White for inviting me to come here today and for putting together this event. And I'd also like to thank my partner in crime, Amansu Eason, for doing this lecture demonstration with me. When Amansu and I were talking about the title of this exhibition, right? The Chicago Avant-Garde, 5 women ahead of their time. And Lisa had mentioned the word radical with Katherine Dunham, and we were talking about, well, what really makes Katherine Dunham radical? And Amansu suggested that one thing we could talk about is Katherine Dunham's use of the pelvis. And I said, yes. So that'll be the focus today, but I first want to give a little bit of background and overview of Katherine Dunham's career, just so that everyone in the room is on the same page about the extraordinary accomplishments of Katherine Dunham. And of course, I can't cover them all in a few minutes, but I'll just go through a couple of things. So first, here's a picture of Katherine Dunham at age 19. She was born in 1909 in the suburb of Glen Ellen, Illinois, and then soon thereafter moved to Joliet, Illinois. At age 19, she followed her older brother, Albert, to the University of Chicago, where she enrolled in courses in anthropology, and also while in Chicago, found an opportunity to pursue her love of dance and performance, something that she'd always loved as a child, but hadn't had much opportunity to take classes. While she was a part of her brother's little theater movement, she performing at the Cube Theater, she kind of became a part of what at that time was called the New Negro movement, which many people today think of as the Harlem Renaissance only. This intellectual and artistic flowering that happened in the 1920s, but was really this nationwide and international movement of Black artists and thinkers pushing for social and political change. Katherine Dunham felt that there was a gap in this movement, that dance was not put forth as a part of the way to fight for social progress in the United States. And so she wanted to combine her love of anthropology with her love of dance and really explore the Black experience and African diasporic dance on the stage and bring that to a stage in a more powerful way. There were, of course, Black choreographers active before her across the country, but she really felt that something new could happen. So with the aid of a Rosenwald Fellowship, she went to the Caribbean to do ethnographic fieldwork in Jamaica, Martinique, Trinidad, and Haiti from 1935 to 1936. And as I'll talk about, she kind of went looking for movement, but what she found was a whole new approach to dance, a whole new way of thinking about dance as a way of life. as a way of community formation, as a way of individual formation, as a way of connecting to the divine, and as a way of connecting to ancestors. And so this is part of what ends up being radical about her dance performances, that she wants to transform what people see on the stage and how they engage with dance on the stage, right? She also is an anthropologist, and I showed this slide. This is a chart she does of the dances of Haiti while she's there, and the way that she really pushes back against, again, dance depictions of Haiti in the United States, which were kind of obsessed with this idea of the zombie and voodoo in the 1930s. And instead, she's kind of absorbing all of this knowledge and this specificity about what dance is for in Haiti and all the different ways it manifests. She takes her research and she goes in two directions kind of at the same time. She publishes books based on her ethnographic experiences, and she brings that material into performance. The performance ends up being the path she follows most dominantly, even though she never stops being a scholar, she never stops publishing, she never stops teaching. And she creates these reviews, a series of multiple different dances, short dances set in parts throughout the African diaspora, creating this vision on the stage that hadn't really been seen before in this way. These reviews appear on Broadway. She becomes wildly successful. She tours the country. This is, and then she ends up in Hollywood films for a few years. This is a film still from Stormy Weather. Yes. And she's also, she directs her own short dance film, Carnival of Rhythm, etc. She also opens a school in New York. Okay, name someone famous in this photo. Okay, here Eartha Kitt. Name a second person famous in this photo. James Dean. Okay, so speaking of being radical, Katherine Dunham's school in New York, there was probably no other place in the United States at that time you could find Eartha Kitt and James Dean in the same classroom, right? So Dunham opened a school in the heart of Broadway's theater district. And it started in 1944 with Franziska Boas, daughter of the famed anthropologist Franz Boas, and Franziska Boas was an anthropologist and dancer in her own right. They soon amicably parted ways, and Dunham reopened her own school in 1945, again, in the heart of Broadway's theater district. And she centered the school around the dance practices of the African diaspora. And so, but then invited everyone else in. And so it was this incredible institution that had a 2-year certificate program in dance where students had to also take classes in theater and anthropology and languages and music. And it was really thinking of this phrase, ahead of 5 women ahead of their time. I feel like today I'm in a university setting and there's a lot of hand-wringing about how can we redo our curriculum, right? How can we make it more inclusive? Well, Katherine Dunham set it up in 1945, and her program is one that we can follow today. She was really invested in training the whole dancer. And the school was very successful for the 10 years it was in operation in New York. Arthur Mitchell, famed founder of the Dance Theater of Harlem, first started taking ballet with Carl Shook at the Dunham School. Other people were constantly in and out, Marlon Brando, and the many famed dancers, including Eartha Kitt, who joined the Dunham Company.
Excuse me, Joanna. I'm
Sure.
sorry. That was the note there. No, I just wanted to add on some things.
Yeah, go for
just
it.
underlined radicalism, if you will. Again, we're talking about 30s and 40s in the United States. Oh, yes. Good morning. So I just want to also point out that racism was very much a big deal. Sexism. This is a Black woman that's taken on the education system. All of these things. It was just so many different layers of radicalism within this. Did I make up that word, radicalism? I like it. I like it. But carry on. I just want, it's so many layers. You know, we can talk about the dance part, but even the locations, you know what I'm saying? It's like so many detailed things that she did geniusly and just kind of so smoothly. It's mind-blowing. And with the scholarship, she traveled by herself. not with the entourage, not with, I need this scholar here. She had help getting the scholarships, but she traveled by herself to the Caribbean as a Black woman asking about someone else's culture. You know what I'm saying? So it was just, she's an amazing, amazing deity.
Thank you for adding that in. And and so we are very much just scratching the surface here with Katherine Dunham. And this is a picture also of her dance school, because another thing, so first of all, that her school was fully interracial, right? At a time when, again, there were some predominantly white institutions that were integrated, but not many. And hers was integrated in a different way. It had Blackness at the center and then invited others in. So it was even a different model, right, of racial integration in the US. And this is a class full of boys, right? This is at a time when you could argue still today, and Amansu, you could probably speak to this more, of where dance is seen as something that's effeminate, that it's not for something for boys to do. What? So this is another, that there were classes full of boys taking class at her school. She was also making radical change off the stage. She was protesting against racial discrimination. This is a newspaper clipping from Brazil in 1950 when she was on a Latin American tour. So after they toured the United States, she and her company started touring the world. In Brazil, her hotel reservation in Sao Paulo, the first stop, was canceled when the hotel manager found out that she was Black. And so she quickly called up her friend, Gilberto Freire, who was a famed author and member of their Congress, and sort of galvanized a protest movement. Here's a group of Black intellectuals in Sao Paulo protesting against the treatment of Katherine Dunham at the Esplanada Hotel. And this is at a time when Brazil is proclaiming they are a racial democracy, that they don't have the race problems that the United States has, right? Because of Katherine Dunham's influence, the Gilberto Freire, as you can see here, introduced a bill into the legislature banning racial discrimination, and it passed. So here she is in another country, helping institute a national law against discrimination. And then the editor of my book went to Brazil in 2017, and then he took his picture in the elevator he was in. This law, which is updated in 1996, is posted in public places all over Brazil, including in public elevators. So Katherine Dunham's presence and influence lives on there now 70 years later. She also was an important part of the decolonization movement. Here she is pictured with the first president of independent Senegal, Léopold Sédar Senghor, in 1962. Senghor had seen Katherine Dunham perform when he was a student in Paris in 1949. And along with a lot of other African intellectuals and political activists at that time, he was inspired by her work and said, you know what, that can be a model for our own countries. And one of the first things he did when he became president in 1960 was found a national dance company of Senegal. And he invited Katherine Dunham to come to Senegal to be an advisor to this company. She came to participate and be an advisor in the first World Festival of Negro Art that Senghor put on in Dakar in 1966. And then she brought Senegalese drummers and other artists from Senegal to the next place she lived, East St. Louis. Here, and this is how my story ends up intersecting, because the gentleman pictured here, Daryl Braddix, was my very first Dunham teacher. I grew up in St. Louis, and I took Dunham Technique from Daryl and Dunham-based jazz dance from his wife, Lee Nolting. She founds a school in East St. Louis in 1967 and spends most of the rest of her life there, and really tries to put forward this idea of arts as a form of social change in a way that she hadn't fully been able to invest in education before because she had her company. Now she could dedicate all of her energies to this school. She also continued to protest against injustice. At age 82, she went on a hunger strike to support Haitian refugees who were fleeing the coup against Aristide. And we are seeing resonances of this today with the treatment of Haitian refugees at the border with Mexico. And Katherine Dunham, the Coast Guard was turning away boatloads of Haitian refugees. And so she went on a hunger strike. And while by the end of it, the US president did not change his policy, people around the world were inspired by her actions. She got letters from school children in Japan who wrote about hearing about her fast and hunger strike and how inspirational it was. And so there's these ripple effects that happen, right? That even, and thinking about activism today, and many of you in this room are thinking about artistic activism, even if it's not the specific end result isn't a specific change in the Haitian refugee policy, through all the people that you have inspired, you've inspired them to take action in various ways that you might not even know, right?
Even just informed and educated somebody that would have no concern about that. Can you all hear me? No. I was using my inside voice. No, I was just saying,
So, and then how is Ms. Dunham's legacy continuing today? Well, there are a couple of great organizations that are doing great work to keep her legacy up. First is the Institute for Dunham Technique Certification, and our very own Amansu Eason is pictured here.
this is a great picture, by the way.
And so if you're interested in taking classes and becoming certified in Dunham Technique, and there's also the Katherine Dunham Centers for Arts and Humanities in East St. Louis. So the pelvis, that is just a very, very brief overview. I want to come back to this question of what is radical about the pelvis, right? So in 1935, the budding choreographer and University of Chicago anthropology student Katherine Dunham, who was 26 at the time, was jotting down notes in her diary as she was thinking about what she had experienced and viewed in Haiti that day, especially through Vodou rituals, including someone who had been possessed by a loa, a spirit, Dambala. She noticed that the undulations of his spine started from the very base. And maybe we should break into a little movement now. Okay, so I'm gonna pause talking, but so she's observing this movement.
Oh, I thought I was gonna do it.
Yeah, you want to.
All right, so yeah.
So as she's observing, she's thinking about how the person who is becoming possessed by Dambala is becoming one with the universe, much as a fetus is one with its mother. Thus, many of these Vodou dance movements, such as the Yam Valou, initiated from the region of the body associated with the womb, namely the pelvis. In her notes, she wrote, "The first great active center of human consciousness lies in the solar plexus. Have modern schools recognized this in use of dance? A return to a more primitive state, a state nearer primal nature. At the solar plexus, this new psyche acts in a mode of attractive vitalism. It knows no objective. It knows only its own vital potency." Here, Dunham employs the lesser used definition of the word primitive as meaning primal, originary, first, most important, rather than the derogatory interpretation of primitivism as inferior. So thinking of primitive as primal and most important and first, originary. So Katherine Dunham located this potent force in the pelvis, and that this potent force was the power of the erotic. And she was a radical artist for bringing it to the concert dance stage in the mid-20th century United States. So why do I use the term erotic, right? So the dancer Martha Graham once called Miss Dunham the high priestess of the pelvic girdle. Whereas Graham's use of pelvic contractions were unidirectional and unirhythmic, Dunham's technique and choreographic vocabulary demanded that dancers move their pelvises polyrhythmically and polydirectionally, and to communicate multiple meanings. Contractions do not just stay in the pelvis, but rather can undulate up and down the spine in figure eights and many other ways. So let's do some movement.
All right, so I'm going to demonstrate two different ways. This goes into one of Miss Dunham's philosophies of form and function as far as choreographing, meaning it's very important for you to have an intention for your movement, especially when you're trying to bring in scholarship. We have to remember, not only was was Miss Dunham choreographing, she was also informing. That was her whole journey. If you see some of her early works, it's very disguised. She'll start off with classical ballet because she knows that in that time, that was the easiest way to trap the white audience into a performance. If I were to start with traditional drumming and traditional clothing, I'm out. That's not what we do. That's not my clique. I don't want to be seen in this performance. Yes? But 5 minutes into your ballet, all of a sudden the scene changes and you're stuck. You don't want to be rude and walk out and leave. So you're stuck now. And then all of a sudden the ballet piano's gone and now we're in the drums and now we're into the pelvis. All right, so first I want to show you a secular kind of movement, meaning social, and then a more spiritual movement. Because it's so funny here in America that we use these same things, but a lot of times dance is only like for self-gratification a lot, especially at that time. So anyway, talking. A lot of Caribbean dance uses the figure 8 for social settings, yes? So movements like this, you'll see with the hips, is a lot more social. You see it walking, you can do this all day, yes, you can take it down, whatever. Yes? Yeah. You also have regular circles. Yes? You have those type of social movements with the pelvis. But also like I demonstrated first, which was Jean Balou, it's also a circular path, but it comes from a different space. It's coming forward, and it's symbolic of how like life recycles and it keeps going. So this starts a motor, yes? And even though I could be doing, which could also be flirtation just a front and back, that can mean something, this means something different. Very similar motion. But to the untrained and the untrained eye and mind, everything pelvis is sexual. Because that's what I use mine for. That's what we talk about. You know what I'm saying? So to bring this whole aspect that, okay, you know, my book used to tell me when I saw two Africans, if you don't mind, maybe, let's do y'all a little facing each other, yes? So if they might have saw us doing this, that could have been seen as, ooh, they're trying to sexually do this. Taking away power from what reproduction is. Does that make sense? So it was this, I love that she was able to inform so many people that would not normally listen to that lesson. You know what I'm saying? And it raised the conversation. They may not come back to the performance or another Katherine Dunham, but the conversation is there when we leave it. Oh, what was that? What just happened? I like it, I don't know if I should, but. All right, so I don't know, was that good? Should I show some more?
Yeah, I'll talk a little more.
Okay, so that was reproductive chakra, yes? Let's work with the heart chakra. All right, because that can also be flirtatious and for prayer. The same thing. If I'm, say for instance, this is me sending the energy that I'm creating from my pelvis up through my heart and then out. I'm not gonna let it reach my crown through my spiritual. It's more of a thought, maybe a question. So the same thing, but now I'm gonna take this undulation out of just my pelvis and bring it to my heart. It's the energy that I'm creating, but I'm also sharing, which can be different from. Right? So it's all about having a true intention when you go to do these works, especially if you're on a level of scholarship where you have to challenge and educate. You need to know what you're doing. What I love about Ms. Dunham is, or what I also learned through my certification process is, we have this term Eurocentric versus Afrocentric vocabulary. The Afrocentric was much more do, and the Eurocentric was much more written. My proof is written. I read this here, I wrote it here, so damn it, it's law. All right, whereas the African experience, I experienced it, I saw it, I know that this leads to this, plus this leads to spiritual this. Yes, rather than I saw it, and this is my opinion of what it is. Ms. Dunham was able to inform people from not only the observatory, but also the participant. So yeah, I think I'm done, sorry.
No.
Thank you.
Well, you're gonna come back. He's gonna come back for more. So to just reiterate what Amansu was saying and showing, that what was radical about this artistry is not just the way the pelvis moved, right? Which was itself radical too, right? People had seen a Graham contraction, right? It was just this.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you saw the pelvis move on stage, that's what it was, right?
And the contraction before then was mainly just to portray a pain or some type of oppression. Yeah.
Right. So, but it wasn't just about the actual way the pelvis moved, but as Amansu was saying, about why, right? And one of the powers that it unleashes is the power of the erotic, which is the power to give life, right? It's a power of affirming life. In its essence, the erotic is the expression of the will to live. And I'm borrowing some of these ideas from Audre Lorde. And such an affirmation of life was especially powerful for Katherine Dunham's predominantly Black dance company to express. In the face of a society that often seemed bent on Black death, the affirmation of the power of life was very powerful. In that sense, her aesthetic was political even when the topic of her dances weren't in some concrete way discussing current social justice issues. Some did, some didn't, but even the ones that weren't were kind of having this powerful life-affirming action. So what was unintended, what Katherine Dunham pushed back against, as Amansu was talking about, was the way white audiences in particular seemed to equate expressions of the erotic with deviant, uncivilized sexuality that was dangerous and in need of policing, right? So until Katherine Dunham appeared on the scene, it seemed like white society gave Black choreographers two options: either embrace a legacy of minstrelsy and lean into stereotypes about hypersexuality, or engage in middle-class respectability politics and deny and condemn sexuality as something unfit to explore in performance. And Katherine Dunham chose a third path, forged new ground, embracing the power of the erotic. And so I want to just give an example of one of her dances that does this. This is a dance called Rita Passage that Katherine Dunham choreographed in 1941 as kind of an embodied exploration of anthropological theories about the relationship between the individual and society. So it was more than a dance. It was an argument about humanity expressed through movement. So the dance, we saw a couple of opening clips of it, an opening couple of minutes. These rituals, puberty, fertility, and death, these are the three rituals shown on stage through this piece. There was a fourth one, Women's Mysteries, that was discarded after first few performances. So fertility, which is an excerpt you saw, has a series of gestures performed repeatedly. Most movements focus on the pelvis. So do you know any of that choreography here? And I'm also thinking of the man coming in.
But I know they did this for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's also the men coming in like this. Things like that, yeah. I do have leggings on, sorry. I meant to warn you before I did that, sorry. So yeah, so there's these the men and women moving on stage, and then the central couple does these movements towards each other. They also do this step coming in. Yeah. So this ritual fertility is about affirming and continuing life in a community, right? The ritual is not joyous or flirtatious, but pretty serious and determined. It expresses a will to live, to keep the community going. And though purportedly representing a primitive society, in quote marks, Dunham's choreography showcased the dancers as distinctly modern beings, a modernity informed by a deeper connection to humanity's primal, meaning original, needs that could only be expressed through the body. So they first performed this piece at the Yale Anthropology Club And a lot of the anthropologists there were blown away. One wrote, "Few of us have been so deeply stirred by any dancing as we were by this return to simple, universal human experience." Another wrote that it was, quote, "the best and most revolutionary type of choreography which it has been my good fortune to see," end quote. The dance became a part of the company's repertoire and a part of its Broadway show, Tropical Review. So then, in the context of a Broadway show, publicized as sizzling and alluring, the context shifted from the Yale Anthropology Club, right? So what happened in Boston in January 1944, when they brought this piece on tour, the Boston censor banned Rita Passage for being, quote, "suggestive and offensive," end quote. Elliot Norton, an influential journalist known as the Dean of American Theater Critics, agreed with the censor and called the puberty and mating rituals, quote, "altogether too explicit," end quote. Margaret Lloyd, dance critic of the Christian Science Monitor and author of the Borzai Book of Modern Dance, found the show overall, quote, "boring as well as distasteful," quote, "because of its focus on," quote, "show business and sex. The latter," quote, "constantly recurring as sheer animality," end quote. However, the censorship triggered counter-protests from liberal white Bostonians. Influenced by the writings of Margaret Mead and the first wave of feminism in the 1920s, many white middle-class liberals in the earliest 20th century had developed a more open approach to sexuality. So they kind of wrote back and they said, one man wrote a letter saying that Dunham is a serious artist who would perform this piece elsewhere around the country without controversy. And they said the censorship was an embarrassment to Bostonians and, quote, "something far too close to outmoded Puritanism and cultural witch burning for comfort," end quote. So, Dunham biographer Joyce Ashton wrote, oh, good. You want to go ahead?
Just want to throw like a couple of
go.
pennies in here. Also, I don't know, it's very underrated. I didn't know until I had a chance to actually check out the exhibit some years ago. Her level of costume detail still can be almost unmatched. Just to be able to put on a scene for fertility. I don't know if you all can see, this is like woven, each little individual, like these pieces are extraordinary. And she never skimped on that. She wanted to make sure that the colorfulness of African people, the sophistication of their garb was on display as well as the movement and the music and the dance. Like every little thing that she did was like done beautifully. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So what is Katherine Dunham supposed to do, right? She seemingly has two choices in response to the censor's ban. Perform Rita Passage anyway, which probably would have resulted in her show getting canceled, right, and losing all of that income that they need to keep their company going, or drop it from the evening, which would have let the censor win. But she did neither. The evening after the ban was announced, the audience kind of waited with breathless anticipation. The Rita Passage was still listed in the program, right? They didn't have time to print new programs, so people didn't know what was going to happen. So it still listed Rita Passage in the second act. So when the curtains rose, the dancers stood on stage in the Rita Passage costumes, motionless. Oh, but be in your opening pose. Yeah. The music began to play, and the dancers stood still. They shifted poses to signal the beginning of a new section. Dunham truncated the 3 sections as she felt her point would come across without going into the full 8 to 12 minutes of each rite. The audience gave a standing ovation, and the censor said nothing. Dunham had triumphed. She had found a solution that ensured her company's financial stability and maintained her political integrity. While the censor may have taken away the dancing bodies on stage, her message of Black unity and solidarity on stage and potential cross-racial solidarity with white audiences still remained. So I actually have no idea what time it is. I want to make sure we have time for audience engagement and participation. Okay, so I think I should stop there with this example, and I want to give Amansu a chance to maybe get you up and moving a little bit.
I love the level of excitement I heard when she said that. That That was awesome. I heard a resistance over here. So no pressure, no pressure. If you like to, there's beautiful space here. I'm just gonna go through some movements. Also, some of her exercise that she used. A good thing about her technique is it was made to train the body to dance any cultural style, any style. So there's space here if you would like to stand up in your space, if you would like to not move at all. All of these things are perfectly fine. So give me some moment, I'm gonna get some music and maybe I can just share some movements with you all. Not all at once though. I don't want traffic. All right. Everybody, just take the neck in a couple circles around, breathing in and out. As you inhale, I want you to inhale positivity, exhaling negativity, but you have to believe it. And let's just take the neck in a couple of circles in the opposite direction. Try to submit to the music. In African dance, there is no separation. You are the music is the dance. Relax, bring the head up, into softer knees, and down, and up, down, inhaling up, exhale down. So also as we're breathing, we're bringing in the sense of we are one. We can breathe together. We are the same. Yes? Shoulders up and back. Up and back. Yes. Up and back. Up. Add a little drop and up. Retreating the body nice. No jerks. To the front. Let's go. Up. Front. Up. Front. Up. Beautiful. 4 more. I think you all are good. Wait a minute. Woo! Okay. What about our upper body? Let's go from right to left. From the ribs. Think of moving from the ribs. You're down here. Yes.
Isolate.
Now, from the heart, radiate forward. Actually, project or think of an energy coming from my heart and affecting the space. Which you can. Alright, let's go front, side, front, side. Front, excuse me. Side. Side. So every time I see someone, I'm thinking of spreading my positive energy with them. We're gonna go a little bit faster. Here we go. And one. Just the heart. Beautiful. Breathing. Keep going. Up. Yeah, you feel it? Working now? What about our hips? Let's swing, right? So I'm doing an undercurve. That means there's a system down and up. This is the very African aesthetic. Rather than just going straight side to side, I add your hand count. In, and two, easy. Yes. Front and back, same thing. Undercurve. And one, and two, and one, and two, and one, two. Try a circle to the right of your hips only. Just the hips. Other direction and back. Beautiful. All right, you all look good. 2 steps, let's go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So, you're hearing the rhythm of Yambalu, which is one of Dunham's notable pieces of art that she used as an influence. The movements of this dance mimic the snake and also the waves of the ocean. Yes? So what we're going to do is we're going to use our arms in different ways. I'm going to give you some options. That wasn't it. All right, relax. No steps. So I want you to keep your fingers nice and tight. These are part of the Dunham hands. Imagine you're trying to store energy in your hand. So if I'm here, my energy may seep out through those fingers. We want to keep them nice and tight, and then just make a slight cut. very careful for any of my experienced dancers that may have studied Martha Graham technique. It is not the same hand. Touch that thumb on the side, yes? From here. Yes. All right, sorry, I got excited. So we're gonna, imagine your hands are cobra heads. Yes? And you're just gonna create a snake-like movement with the arms. Yes? So you have the side movement. You can have a one-arm movement, other arm movement. You can have an over-the-head movement. Yes? You can have an under-the-pelvis movement. We're going to take these arms with our two-step. Yeah? So again, this is our two-step. Right? Together, left, together. And I'll show you some variations. You can do this. Maybe you want to go one. Opposite. I want you to do whatever feels right in your body with your arms. Let's go. One. Make sure you breathe in. Keep going. I want to see what's happening. Oh! Yes. All right. So it's getting hot now. Let's double time. Let's go. Step. Same thing with your arms. Let's go. And one. Beautiful job. Give yourselves a hand. We're going to do one more thing. All right. So, I almost did you all like my students. I almost started clapping. All right. Anyway, so that dance is actually the movements, the undulation, is supposed to take the practitioner to a state of ecstasy. Full fearlessness, no doubts. This is a dance of prayer. Yamalu is a prayer dance. You're supposed to manifest things as you're praying through this dance. The simplicity of this undulation, it is not supposed to be jarring at all. Again, to get you to that point of full submission where you just are willing to receive whatever gifts you are asking for, takes a lot of work. Because you can very easily jerk this. And imagine being in a meditative state and somebody just comes and that can totally mess up everything, seriously. All right, so the undulation is so delicate and so tender that it actually feels more like a massage of the spine than a workout. Yes? So again, this is a ceremonial dance. These ceremonies can last hours. All right, so it's a very minimal movement. When it's put on the stage, of course, we understand performance as being exaggerations of life, yes? That's when you start to see a lot of the bigger movements so that we can exaggerate and let you know what's happening on the concert stage. Ceremonially, the movements are very small. Almost internal. Does that make sense? Yes. So that was a spiritual movement. I want us to do some secular movements now, okay? So carnival type of movements. I would love it, everyone that is standing, if we can make a circle. I would love to take some movement in a circle around the space. Look at how many people went to go sit down. I'm joking. All right. So, again, oh, I love this circle. Yeah. Can we get some pictures of this circle?
Yeah.
So I'll give you all a few more moments. I'm very excited. Thank you all for coming out today, too. All right, so when we are dancing together, we do not ignore each other. There is no way I'm going to be dancing and having the time of my life and act like I would see a whole person hitting me. Hey! So we are going to dance in a line. We're not just going to stand in our spots and dance by ourselves. No. In fact, can everyone turn to their right? And what we're going to do is we're going to take that figure 8 step. This is a very progressive, very traditional movement for carnival. And literally, you're just stepping right and left, and your hips are just going. Yes? Now, what I want you to also do is take a moment to interact with the person in front behind, on the other side, two people down, 3 people down. We are in this together every day. The sense of community is what is lost a lot of times in this country. We feel like everything is so individual. I don't need nobody, I need to do this on my own. Yes? Yeah. Bring back, hey, oh, I like what she does. Hey, hey, hey! Don't act like we are not here. Okay? So let me play some music and we're just gonna have some fun. Trust your body. If your body says, let me take a moment to break it down for somebody, do that. Do that. Somebody thought they was about to get me with that move. Let me show you this one though. So this is definitely not a traditional carnival rhythm. Let's bypass that, okay? We're just gonna dance, all right? This is actually a war dance. We're gonna keep going. It's all right. Right, left. On your own time. Let's go. It's a train. Oh, you better sauce this up. Yes. Oh, I see a dance party. I see it. All right. We're gonna take it a little bit lower. Bring your knees. Let's go. And bring it back up. Get ready? We're going to switch directions. Go down the leg. Up. Now you got a new partner. Does anybody want to come to the middle of the circle and left side? Anybody? Oh. But we have to move, people. We have to move. Yes. You're stuck, huh? Keep going. Don't worry about what you look like. Don't worry about what other people think. That makes us so much smaller and less productive. Do your work as a human. Keep it going. If you feel like you can do more, give more. Some of us have more love at times, and we need to share that. 5 more seconds. Believe it. Now, one last inhale. Let's take all of that beautiful energy in. Thank you all so much.